Hi, this is Mr. Aguilar. Today we're going to go over drawing fundamentals. So this is going to be a really quick video. We're going to go over a couple of things, body mechanics and pencil grips. And this will allow us to do a few things while we're drawing. So the first thing we're going to get to is our body mechanics. So as human beings, we tend to move in an elliptical fashion. So if you take your hand and just wave it, you'll see that we move in elliptical fashion. We do not move in a mechanical fashion naturally. So there's a couple of things that we can do to help assist our bodies move in a more mechanical way. So the first thing, we're going to lock our wrists. So normally our wrist moves here, but what we're going to do is we're going to lock our wrist and we're not going to move it at all. So while we're drawing, we're doing this. But the problem is when we move from our arm from our elbow, we're also creating a curve. So we're going to lock our elbow too, and basically we are going to be moving with our shoulder. And this is going to allow us to draw straighter lines. Now, the difficult thing is if we lock our wrist, this is an uncomfortable position and you can't see what you're doing. Our body normally works at around a 45-degree angle. So if I take this paper and move it roughly 45 degrees, now I can have my wrist in a nice comfortable locked position and I can see what I'm doing. It makes things much easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is practice drawing some straight lines. And I get some nice horizontal lines. The next thing I want to do is I want to draw some vertical lines or perpendicular lines. But here's the problem. While you're sitting down, it's really hard to do this. Okay? So if I'm standing up and drawing on a board, I'm actually using my legs to go up and down. So it's easier to draw vertical lines while standing up. So in this case, it's very simple. If we can't change our body mechanics, we have to change our surface. So I'm simply going to rotate this, and now I can draw straight lines that are going to be perpendicular to my horizontal line. So it's as easy as that, simply rotating the paper to match your natural body movements. The next thing we're going to talk about is drawing and sketching circular shapes or circles. Since we're elliptical, the farther we move away from our core, the more elliptical we become. The closer we get to our core, the more circular we can become. It's a little hard to do this because I'm going to be reaching over underneath the camera, but I'm going to do my best to get this paper underneath my core and just draw a couple of circles. And again, we're just lightly sketching some circles. This is just a warm-up, just a practice, and we want to get that in there. I'm going to do a couple of them, different sizes. And what you're going to find is if you're right-handed like I am, the ones on the left are always going to look nicer. And then when you get to the right, you're going to get these little wobbles. If you're left-handed, your right side is going to look better and your left side is going to have more wobbles. But I use this as a way of finding a circle. So I have a nice shape right here. And again, notice I'm rotating the paper. And I can take this shape and I can find the circle within that, and then basically just take an eraser and erase the sketch lines that I don't need. So this is useful if you're just sketching. You do this very, very lightly. I'm doing it a little bit darker so you guys can see it on the camera. And then all you do is take your eraser and you erase your little scribble line. So it's important to be able to do this because sometimes you're going to be out sketching and you don't always have things available to you that you would have at home, at your desk, or in a studio. And then I'll do this last one real fast. One thing I'm not doing, which is harder, is I'm not using a drawing board. And since I brought that up, okay, so there's my rough circles, right? So you can see, since I brought that up, I'll bring one up here real fast. So a drawing board, see it right here. The nice thing about this is we don't like drawing on flat surfaces. Normally we draw at an angle, so we'd have an elevated desk. If you don't have an elevated desk like a drafting table, you can just get your art board, you park it on the desk, and you have a nice, comfortable drawing angle. But for the purpose of the videos, I'm drawing stuff on a flat surface. Okay, so couple of things. To draw straight lines, you need to lock wrist and elbow. Okay. The second thing, you need to angle your drawing surface to match your body mechanics. Okay, that's a match. I got a little, my handwriting's bad. So those are the two things that you need to do. To be able to draw circular shapes, you need to stay within your core. Okay, so stay within your core. That's the big deal. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is pencil grips. So let me get this fixed a little bit. What I have here on my pencil is a pencil extender, because as you draw and as you sharpen your pencil, it gets shorter and shorter, and it gets to the point where you can't use your body mechanics and you can't use your pencil grips. So you can buy a little pencil extenders. These are fairly cheap. They'll sell them at Hobby Lobby, most art stores, but you can also order them online. Most places will sell them. So Michaels, Hobby Lobby, Blix Art Supplies, Office Depot, Staples, any of those companies you can go to. They're online. They don't always have them in the store, but you can order and have them delivered. But they're nice, and they'll help you maintain your pencil life. So we're going to talk about pencil grips. And why we need to know them. So a lot of people think the ability to shade is a talent. It's really a skill set. It's a skill set that can be taught. So it just takes practice, though. I'm going to show you 5 different pencil grips. And the first one is going to be on the back of the pencil. Okay, so this is a back grip. It's also a underhand grip. So anything that's gripped underneath your hand or in your palm is we're calling an underhand grip. Anything that goes over your hand, we're calling that an overhand grip. So I'm going to start at the back of the pencil, underhand grip, and I'm just going to put a value down. And I'm going to add a little tiny bit of pressure just so the camera can pick it up. Okay, so that value is going to be very, very light. So we're going to call this back. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to move down 1/3. And again, I'm also going to be the underhand grip. And this is the back third. And you're going to see that you get a slightly darker value. So we're going to call this back 1/3. The next grip is going to be a middle grip where we're in the middle of the pencil. Now you can either do underhand or overhand. Generally, your overhand grip at the middle of the pencil is for drawing and sketching, but when you're going to shade or add value, you switch to an underhand grip. And I'll come in here and I'm just going to put a value down. And again, you can see that it's getting slightly darker, right? So we're going to call this one middle. My last 2 grips are both going to be overhand grip. You can't go underhand with these. So I'm going to go to the bottom or front 1/3. So we're just going to call that front 1/3. And I'm going to put a value down. We'll call this front 1/3. Our last grip is like you're used to writing. Now, in art, we generally never hold our pencil this low. This is mainly if you're going to actually sign or write something, or if you want to get something really, really dark. But normally, we don't ever really hold it down here. So again, you can see that your value gets much darker. And excuse my handwriting. My handwriting is bad. So back 1/3, middle, front 1/3, front. And you can see that our values get darker as you move down the pencil. So a lot of times, especially in the beginning of classes, I like to remind students, to watch my hand because I'm constantly doing this as I need certain values or need to be able to do certain things drawing wise. The next technique is for controlling our values or being able to go to a light value to a darker value gradually. We call those a gradient. So if I'm going to be in the back third of my pencil, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start laying down a value. Now, as I start moving down, I'm going to start applying pressure. And right now I'm squeezing the pencil about as hard as I can. And as I move up, I'm going to relax my hands. And that gives me a gradient going from a lighter to a darker value. So we call this the pinch technique. And that really allows you to have control. The next grip, I'm going to go back to that middle grip. And since I'm shading, I'm going to keep it underhand. I'm going to start here because one thing you're going to notice is your middle grip starts at about the same value as your back 1/3 grip when you're pinching it as hard as you can. So I can bring this down. I got something in the paper. You always want to have a clean surface, right? So I'm going to start pinching. Now I'm pinching as hard as I can. And then as I move up, I'm going to start relaxing my hands. And I just want to start blending. Okay. So you can see how you're going from a light value to a medium value to a dark value. Now, if I go down to my bottom third, my initial value is going to be about the same as the darkest value I can get from pinching at the middle of the pencil. I'm going to bring this down, and then I'm going to start applying some pressure. I don't know how much the camera is going to pick up. I got to turn my head a bit because the light is reflecting off the pencil. So I can't see what I'm doing very well. And that's how I get my really dark values, right? So the pinch technique gives you control. It allows you to get from one value to the next with a smooth gradient. The last thing I want to talk about is applying values, especially dark values. So when you apply dark values, what you don't want to do is you don't want to come down here at that bottom grip and just start shading. Because what you're going to end up doing is digging into the paper and you're going to get all these streaks. And we don't want streaks. Okay? We want to avoid getting streaks. So how can we have a dark value and not get a bunch of streaks? Well, we build up our values. Now, graphite gets smoother and smoother the more layers you do. So if I start putting down a medium value, okay, and then I come back over it, so I'm going to lower my grip a bit. I'm going to come back over it, darken that value. Then I'm going to go over it again. And I'm going to switch angles just a little bit, and this just helps the graphite push each other around and get into all the nooks and crannies. Once I have that completed, I can come in and start adding pressure and really getting my dark values in there. So when you look at the two of these, you're going to see, and again, sorry for the camera quality. I'm using an overhead cam. You're going to see that it's much smoother than this. Okay. So build up your values. Always build up your values. There's also benefits from this philosophy of building up your values. One, it ensures you never go too dark too fast. It allows you to gauge your values from light to dark and see where you're at. If you draw something too light, it's easier to make it darker. If you draw something and shade it in too dark, well, then the only option is to either start over or get an eraser, which can cause some smudging. So I always tell my students, go a little lighter than you intend, and then build up your values and make your adjustments to the darker range versus going too dark, because you really can't make your adjustments the other way without having to use an eraser. So that's it. This is the drawing fundamentals. Pretty simple. Let's recap on the grips. We have the back of the pencil, which is the underhand grip. We have our back 1/3, which is also underhand grip. We have our middle, which can be an overhand or an underhand, in which case we can also use our index to create pressure. Then we have our bottom third, which can only be done overhand, and then we have the bottom of the pencil, which we hardly ever are in this grip. Okay, the farthest we normally go down is about here. We usually live somewhere around here and here for drawing, and that's something you might have to get used to. So that's the end of the video. Again, this is Mr. Aguilar. I hope you picked up something useful, and I'll see you next time.